I think I'm rambling, so I need to get this under 15 minutes because that's what Instagram insists upon. Or I need to rethink and start doing these things in a different way. Rutger Bregman, you might remember him, depending on your, what turns you on. A few years ago, I think it was about 2019, he was at the wretched Davos. How he got to be there, I don't know. But he was there, and they were all, all the rich people, rich, famous people discussing the world and how they're going to change the world. And that's interesting because that's clearly a tradition that goes back, gosh, it certainly goes back to the great meetings of the bishops that created creeds, the Nicene Creed. There were these what do you call them? Not conflations, where people came together, conclaves, like that silly film, conclaves, where people got together and they discussed the world, and they have endowed themselves with being world discussers, that they are wise and that they can discuss and create improvements in how they lead the world and stuff. That's an old ancient tradition. And our boy there, Rutger, has now clearly become part of that after attacking the rich. And he's decided that what the way forward, or as I call it, the priority of liberating the human condition. Let's call it that. Don't call it anything else. Liberating the human condition as an ideal. If you disagree, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You don't liberate the human condition by creating the best GDP. You don't do it by creating the best army. You don't do it by having the least of a trade deficit. You don't do it by having the most rich people. You don't do it by being the richest person. You just don't. There is another criteria involved in liberating the human condition, right? There have been people have had goes at it, often religious goes and stuff. But this is Bregman. This is Bregman, and he's on a platform, Novara Media, which I'm a big fan of, less and less, unfortunately, day by day, and inevitably day by day, because it's all more and more this conclave notion. These people get together, and this is the idea. So Bregman's talking about how the left is destroying progress, or the liberation of the human condition, because it's insisting on not growing. It doesn't want to grow. He uses the example of the famously liberal California wanting to create high-speed rail, and they haven't laid a single meter of it, while the Chinese are doing thousands of kilometers a week or something. And he's blaming that on internecine left-wing inefficiencies. That they talk too much, and they don't want to grow. They don't want to create all that amount of concrete, which is very bad for the environment, etc., etc., etc. Completely ignoring the fossil fuel industry and the automobile industry. So how bright are you, Helmut Rutger? Tell me. So you've got two things. You've got this idea, which we seem to be fixated on, as George Will said very articulately. It's not a matter of the ruling class being an elite. It's choosing the right elite. And my dispute with that is that the elite doesn't exist. It's not really equality. The stipulations that you use for places like, he keeps talking about Harvard and Oxford, and how the best people go there, the best people qualify to go there, and what we should be doing on the left is encouraging constituencies of that group to get together and to run, young and fresh ideas and young and fresh. And I'm listening to this and I'm going, yes, how is this different from anything that's occurred since the Greeks? How is it different? So, in other words, which is not to say there's anything wrong with it, but don't tell me it's effective. Because if it's effective, we'd be doing a lot better than we are. Unless you like unless you like genocide, unless you like a record-breaking income inequality, unless you like worldwide pandemics, unless you like those kinds of things, you cannot seriously look at the world in 2025. Even if you're an absolute zombie of Western civilization, which I'm not. But even if you look at the priorities of the Western civilization, you'd have to say this is not working. And the system that has been used for thousands of years is the idea that we need to find the right elite to run the world. Right. And what I'm finding myself is that I can make that claim and I can make that point without making it about hating the elite. I don't hate the elite. I just find them very boring. And that this notion of liberating the human condition, the possibilities of that are very hybrid, right? So the Western cultural elite will insist that Mozart or Beethoven or Brahms or anybody like that is it. And I'm going, yes, fine, it is it, part of it. And it works for you. And you, when you go to Oxford and to Harvard, you are indoctrinated into those values. That is what you find valuable. So you will go to listen to a concert. You'll get all dressed up in your penguin suit and you'll go and you'll sit in a large room with people like you who talk like you and smell like you, and you will find that to be groovy. That's fine, absolutely fine. It's not everything. It's just not even close. When you're claiming that it is everything, then you will have the Europe that you have today, which lives in as many ivory towers as it possibly can, and it educates its children in that narrow way, right? And then we get into a whole bunch of other subjects which are well worth getting into, and I've touched on some of them, particularly about education, which becomes indoctrination at some point, where you start providing people with the skill set to discover themselves and their take on life. When you go beyond that and you say, no, this is life, this is what it is. It's that car, it's that Tesla, it's that BMW, it's all of these things. 45% of your elite, your most talented Ivy League graduates go into finance. Finance does nothing for the community, absolutely nothing, right? It makes elites rich. That's what it does. So if that's what you want, that's fine. Go ahead with that. But I'm suggesting that it doesn't work. So however intelligent you may be, on that level, you're stupid. You're not recognizing that it doesn't work. To go back to the breakthrough television, the adolescence program, what I've seen discussions around it on many levels by many different kinds of, well, that's not true. They're all going to be of the elite. The discussers are the elite. The conclusions they're drawing from that TV program are very interested in how utterly stupid and limited they are. right? So their solutions, if they are doing what they're doing, which is they're going to take it around the country in England, they're going to show it to people, or they're going to show, they're not even addressing, they're not even asking the right questions. They're looking at this thing this way, and rather like this, what's his name, Bergman, whatever it is, they're going back to the same well. And it is the definition of insanity, as now lore. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And the idea of an elite, the more talented among us, and I'm find it really strange to be in 2025. And I've been around for 6 million years, and I'm listening to this discussion, and I'm going, you should be going in the other direction. And you're not. You're doubling down on this notion of that the world should be run by the more talented people, and presumably that those more talented people, if you're talking about deeply intelligent people who all go into finance, in other words, they all go into this speculative stock market thing to make as much money as possible. I am not looking at intelligent people. Evidence that Harvard students are unintelligent. And this guy, Bregman, he's saying, well, what happens is the problem is they go to the university and, they're studying and everything, and they go in wanting to change the world and wanting to, find a way to reclaim water from the oceans and cure malaria and all that. That's what they intend when they get, this is what he says, because they're elites. Because elites want to do good things, and they go into the business, they go into the school, and that somehow some corporate chap shows up. McKinney's, I think he called it. I don't know, but some corporate chap shows up and seduces them away into the world of finance. That tells me that those people are stupid when they walk into Harvard. And it's everywhere right now. This relationship between wealth and people of great talent, you're fusing that together. And it's simply not true. There's tons of evidence if you wanted to look for that evidence, but you're not going to look for that evidence. If Elon Musk you're upset, Bregman is upset that the left is criticizing Elon Musk and saying he's stupid, and he's saying, well, look at what he does and what he does. Yes, of course, out of 1,000 children whose parents are millionaires and who can provide them with all the luxuries that they might need, and you add a sort of rather strange personality, yes, you're going to find a genius, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to find a genius in the mountains of Armenia herding goats. You're just not looking there. And on the facts, as I'm saying to you, on the facts, on the stipulations that you make, the criterion that you use, they're not intelligent. You're not intelligent. It's not working. Except on its own terms, which look at the evidence. To say that the contemporary world will make people rich, it has. It's made a few people incredibly, astoundingly rich. But that is not in enabling the liberation of the human condition at all. It's doing exactly the opposite, and you're compounding it, so stop.